Welcome to the SEA Center's new podcast, Perspectives. We are a New Delhi-based think tank, and this podcast is a platform for our researchers to discuss technology policy issues in an accessible format.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of our podcast, Perspectives. I'm Shweta, this is Madiha, that's Chavi, and that's Akhil. We're all researchers at the SEA Center. And today we're going to be talking about the couple that was captured at Coldplay's concert on the Kiss Cam and the larger implications of this whole thing for online privacy. So, to just kind of bring everyone up to speed in case there's someone here who hasn't seen this. There was basically a Coldplay concert somewhere in the US recently, and in the concert was a Jumbotron, a Kiss Cam, where, the camera captured certain people in the audience. And there was this one couple that was attending the concert, standing in the VIP area. And during the Kiss Cam segment, the camera focused on them and they looked really taken aback. And Chris Martin very slyly commented that they're, either having an affair or they're very shy. And then the internet basically broke with the whole controversy of this couple having an extramarital affair. So that's broadly what happened. But what we're more interested in is the larger lessons that this actually has for online privacy and how we interact in an increasingly digital world. So, off the bat, the one issue I see is a blurring between public and private spaces and there being no clear understanding of where anyone can expect any privacy anymore. So how do you guys see this issue and what are your thoughts on it?
I think this isn't the first time we're seeing this. We saw this just a couple of years ago with the Try Guys situation, right? One of the Try Guys, the founders, was caught with an employee in a similar-ish situation where they were out at a club with an expectation of privacy, having a little private space within the public sphere. And it was captured by a fan and sent to the people involved and their spouses and escalated into a huge thing. It took over the internet and everybody was commenting about the ethics of it, the morality of it. But nobody was really discussing the whole privacy issue. Now, this situation is actually giving us a way to actually analyze that from this the lens of privacy as well.
Yeah, but don't you think the Try Guys situation is also a little complicated because Try Guys, I don't remember when they came onto the scene, but they were fairly well known at the time this happened, right? Because they had all those videos of them trying different things. So they were popular influencers. Whereas this couple was just like anyone else, like you and me, going to a concert, relatively obscure. Sure, maybe they were successful or known in their field, but not known to the wider public. And then virtually overnight, they find this intrusion into their privacy. So do you think that also plays a role? Because here is one group which has some level of fame and an audience, and here are two people, ordinary people living their lives, no celebrities, who are just thrust into a
that is something that has changed with when social media has taken over. Earlier, this was just something that celebrities experienced. It was just them who were the focus of cameras every time they go out. Now all of us are subjected to it to a certain degree. If you're walking in popular crowded spaces, there would be at least one person who's either live streaming or recording a video for reels or something, and they'd be coming up to you to sometimes even ask you questions. So can any of us have an expectation of privacy in public spaces now?
Yeah, I think, that's a larger question, right, that seems to flow from this.
I think that in itself is a concern, but also what this means for people associated with us, right? Case in hand, the CEO got engulfed in something that he couldn't reasonably have expected coming his way, but it did happen. And what this quickly snowballed into was that his family got involved and people started doxing his wife and they tracked her down, her Facebook account down, and soon enough she was being spammed on social media accounts, which is not something that any of us could have imagined would happen. But because social media, news on social media today spreads like wildfire, everybody who is associated with you could be involved in something that was an accidental breach of your privacy, and it ends up having serious ramifications, not just for you, but also for people involved around you, which is unfair, but that is how things are evolving around us these days.
So while I was looking at this issue, so I was reading that Andy Brown wanted to file a lawsuit against Coldplay. So, and then like the Coldplay responded, that you cannot expect privacy at such events where there are like, let's say like tens of thousands of people and then there are tons of cameras around in such event. But I think, what's really sort of questionable here is that, you cannot just say just because it's a public event and someone is visiting, let's say, a concert, and then you can, let's say, mention on a ticket somewhere in a dark pattern hidden under fine print that, you're being filmed. So, and nobody pays attention to such things until unless it's like being clearly communicated. So this largely tells us that, while we are visiting these public spaces, it's being increased, it's getting increasingly harder to kind of keep our private lives private. Because there's also this rise of digital voyeurism, where a lot of people are enjoying such content, and because it's being sort of incentivized and it's sort of being, a lot of people are finding such content, enjoying such content. There's a rise of people who are deliberately shooting such content and putting it out on social media, which later also brings us to the question that, it's getting harder to take down such content as well once it's viral and once it's spiraled out of context. So these are some trailing questions that come.
I think on that, I would like to share a personal anecdote. I was at the Lodi Garden some time ago, and again, it raises the question of how much privacy can we expect in a perfectly public sphere. The issue is that back in the day when we thought, okay, hey, like I'm going to go for a nice little picnic with my friends, you would be left alone. But today things have changed drastically, and we had a YouTuber with a significant number of followers come to us and basically coerce us into recording a reaction video for them. And ultimately, what ended up happening was that it went on air, and I wasn't comfortable with the video, and I asked YouTube to take it down. Now, given the nature of IT laws that we have, the laws are only taken down within the geographic confines of our country, which means that anyone using a VPN or accessing the content globally will still very much be able to access the content. And that means that it's truly never scrubbed from the internet, and that it's out there for people to watch when you really haven't consented to it, or even if you did consent to it in the moment, you have the right to withdraw consent, but that really means nothing, at least the way things are.
On that note, like let's say like in that case you were lucky to take it down and YouTube sort of complied to it and it wasn't like spirally out of context. But let's say what happens in the case of content, there's a lot of vox pop content where people are giving their consent to be shot. But what happens about people who are, let's say, roaming around in the background? What happens? They didn't give consent to being shot or being filmed, or some vlogger is taking, making his vlog, and there are a lot of people who didn't even realize that they're being shot. And like, there's another interesting thing where I saw there's this correlation between Google Maps as well. So a lot of people are saying that their properties are being showed up on Google Maps without them consenting for it. And then there is this recourse. A lot of people are talking that they can take it down, then they have the right to Google Maps to it. But then a lot of people don't even know or realize that they are being there's a satellite picture being taken. So there are larger privacy concerns around this, which can be extrapolated from this incident that happened recently.
Even with content becoming viral or such, it almost seems like people are actively on a lookout for content that could potentially grab eyeballs, because there is a real monetization factor that comes into play, right? There is an economic benefit to be derived, and people are constantly trying to derive as much of that as it possibly can, because at the end of the day it boils down to making money, and like everything is a business, at least for people who are pursuing this on a more professional level. So I think that is also adding to this breach of privacy in public spheres that would have gone undetected, but today people are actively seeking it out.
To kind of tie what you and Akib were saying together, one thing that very clearly jumps out is informed consent just does not work in today's world, and it's a premise that underlies a lot of privacy and data protection laws around the world. The notion that people can meaningfully understand what's going to be done with their information and then give consent. But in a world where the minute I step out of my door, I have no idea what the context of the environment around me is, who is looking to capture what information about me. Like you said, I might even be in the background. I may not even be the focus. So I may not even realize there's something to consent to. So clearly, when you start applying this in practice as you go about, your activities in the world, it just doesn't hold up. And the other thing on it also affecting people around you. So now it's no longer just you who's compromised, but also your loved ones, your family. So it has these spillover kind of effects that we don't see. And especially when you talked about, that the YouTuber who was asking you to record something, it also shows something about the state of how privacy harms take place. So a lot of data protection laws basically try to protect you from privacy harms that come either from how a business collects and processes your data or from how the state collects and processes it. But there is a third actor basically who can contribute to the problem, and that is us as people. We are in a world where increasingly everything is captured online. Like you said, there are incentives to keep capturing it online to get eyeballs, to get money. And so what laws maybe don't plug very well is what happens when harms come from the actions of fellow users. And that remains something that's woefully unaddressed. And then if what you're saying is that my only avenue, which is removing that content, even that's not enforced very uniformly, that leaves us stranded in a world where so much of information is kind of out there. It's also kind of a comment on the state of affairs, wouldn't you think, about where people are going with their own sense of...
I think as a society, as a people, we've always been drawn to gossip and especially salacious pieces of gossip. We find it very interesting. But the issue is that back in the day, we didn't have communication that was happening at the speed of light. The world wasn't a global village, but today it is. So previously, what would remain confined within, say, our
particular geography,
within our neighborhoods, or spying on our next door neighbor and gossiping about them, which we seem to derive a lot of joy from, has now escalated to a point where nothing is out of bounds, and everything is acceptable. Everything is encouraged, even, and that I think
that also leads, collectively as a society, as a stakeholder in this event, there needs to be some sort of sensitization, some sort of conditioning that such kind of content needs not to be appreciated, needs not to be pushed more. So that's something that we collectively or at an individual level can do our individual little part by at least not, let's say, forwarding it to 10 other people, which has been sort of made increasingly easier on, let's say, platforms like Instagram, where you share it quickly with 20 other friends and then it spirals out of context. So at an individual level, we can play our role. If you see or realize that this is unconsented content out there on this platform, the best you can do is not circulate it to other people.
Blur out people in the background.
Think about it. Actually, we're also talking about people who are salacious, but I can give you an example, which I think the motives are innocuous. So I was in London most of 2023-24. And when I just started walking around, I wanted to show a lot of friends and family what London looks like. And I was walking for most of the time that I was in London. So I just kept capturing videos of people on the street, not to capture them, just to show them what it looks like, because I'm also walking, these are my surroundings. And it doesn't register to me in that moment, even when I don't really want to intrude on someone's privacy, that is what is happening. Even if, all you can see is a flicker of someone going past, or just, their backs are to you, so you can't see their front, you can't necessarily identify them. But if you really think about it, from the most innocuous things you do on a daily basis, you already have, information about so many users. So, we all, I think, want to be good people. I hope that that's the impulse we have, but I think technology has just made it incredibly complicated to be this person also. Absolutely we should, but also it's so tough to live up to that ideal when small things like this also end up,
So true. I think in this case, it's these issues, these are increasing, these are very hard to kind of tackle and then control, or to stop such issues you would only do. want to, let's say take a photo or a video of a city, but here you are intentional that you don't want to capture. So my point here was we have to be intentional or be conscious about let's say a person is drunk or he's right there on the street and you don't want to capture it and put it out on social media. This is the kind of content that I'm trying to put forward, that we should be sensitive not to do such things.
And in the entire discourse that broke out as an immediate consequence of the Coldplaygate, everyone blamed everyone except the fact that we are very much complicit in this becoming a gate. And I think it begins with taking responsibility and not being an enabler in this system that is rigged against us. We need to act as people with some decency and civic sense. And I think once that comes into play, a lot of this menace can be contained.
Yeah. Think about it. When you started this, I don't think we would have ever thought that just simply walking into a concert could have so many implications. But clearly, as this couple unfortunately found out, that a simple act of deciding to go out to a public place to just enjoy for a bit, let your hair down, could have such serious repercussions, and you may not even be able to do anything about it, beyond a point. So I think this is actually a good reminder for us to understand the layered ways in which online privacy works in our world, appreciate the complexity of how information is transmitted today, and just be mindful and hopefully better people in how we interact and what we choose to share.
Exactly.